Welcome all. Welcome back to the Believe in I Say podcast. This is the afternoon edition of the podcast with your host Tyler Carter.
and with your host Cody Vancillo.
Man, what a much needed win yesterday, Cody. The Cyclones pull away from the Bearcats, 34-17. What are your thoughts, man?
I think this was a game that was much needed. I mean, not just from the team perspective, but from the fan perspective, because everybody around the Iowa State fan base, like around Iowa State, knew that this was a much needed win in order
Hmm.
to really still be on track to meet like some expectations that were set at the beginning of the year, and just to really keep yourself alive in the title in the Big 12 title race. And looking at what's happened around the Big 12, as we'll get to later on, this win was key to staying alive in that race.
Definitely, man. There's just like you said, we're gonna talk about that later, but let's get deeper into this game. Once again, Rocco had one of his best games of the year yesterday. Used his legs when he needed to on some crucial runs. Especially, he saved a very high snap and he ran it in for a touchdown, ad libbing that, and then on that crucial third down, he ran for like about 35 yards to basically ice the game at that point.
Yeah, and I think Rocco looked much better like in this game. I mean, the last two games he had been looking a little shaky, just in the pocket and things like that. But I think he was able to get back on track. He found his footing. He regained some confidence, and he was pretty efficient today. I mean, I'll go over so his passing stats, 24-33 for 234 yards and a touchdown. That is decent. That's decent for Rocco, so
Hmm.
not too shabby. But obviously, like you mentioned, Rocco Beck's legs were the big factor. And I mean, that second half, I think it was all Rocco Beck making plays.
Definitely, man. Him, and then we have to talk about some unsung heroes. Let's talk about Gabe Burkle. Gabe Burkle stepped up big time yesterday. Has some huge catches, and let's talk about the young guys. Brett Eskildson, the guy from Texas who got some playing time. He had two huge catches and two crucial catches in the game to keep the game alive for the Cyclones in the second half.
Yeah, you mentioned the two crucial catches. I think yeah, both of those were crucial. Was it first downs that kept
Mm-hmm.
drives alive and that kept like the offense on the field because you knew that you need to keep your offense on the field. Because I think we said this in our predictions that the Iowa State offense needs to be like the main driving factor for the rest of the season, and this was a step in the right direction for the offense to carry over like the team for the rest of the year.
Definitely, yeah. Because once again, the defense struggled in the run game, and I mean, Brendan Sorsby had 14 carries for 141, and the other running back was just running wild. So yeah, the offense I would say definitely won us this game. Um, So I think offensively, this is probably as good an effort as you wanted them to have, and it definitely sets up something nice next week going into Salt Lake City.
For sure. And I think actually you'll have like I think we said this before. Yeah, I mean Cincinnati was running all over our defense. I mean you had that long touchdown from Brandon Sorsby and whatnot, but outside of like all these runs or whatever, like the Iowa State defense did a great job keeping
Hmm.
Cincinnati out of the end zone. I mean you only give up what one touchdown in the first drive, which seems to be an issue with the team, but it at the end of the day it wouldn't really matter. And then that long touchdown. Other than that, the defense did a good job of getting Cincinnati off the field and keeping them from out of scoring range.
Yeah, man. They only gave up one touchdown in the second half. Outscored Cincinnati 24-7 in the second half.
Mhm.
I mean, and you look at the receiving numbers. I mean, Higgins and not like you said. There's always going to be that one unsung hero, and that was Gabe Burkle yesterday. Because I mean, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel had decent games, not usually what they usually do, but I mean, you look at that. I mean, that's what you need is like you need somebody else to step up big time.
Hmm.
So there you go, and so for Iowa State yesterday, the defense the turnover margin was actually pretty even
Hmm.
yesterday. But it's really just really with execution, and that's really what won them this game.
Yeah, and then you mentioned offense, not just Gabe Burkle, but I also got to give a shout out to Steve Klotz because where
Mm-hmm.
he had that really nice touchdown. It kind of redeemed itself for last week where he had that perfect play, but it was just executed so poorly. This play was a perfect play, and they executed it well. So I mean, I think that's the difference from this week to last week is you had similar play calls that were great, but one week you didn't execute it well. This week you were able to execute it, and I think that's the big key into how we won this game compared to how we lost.
Definitely. I mean, and they had a decent day on the ground. Abu with um, not the game clinching, but basically just an insurance touchdown at the end to get his confidence up.
Hmm.
And the team ran for an average of 4.5 yards a carry, which is, I mean, they only ran for 152, but still, just the fact running for 4.5 yards a carry, that is sort of promising by this offensive line. Even the offensive line did sort of struggle yesterday.
Yeah, but I mean, on the offensive line, they did struggle at times, but there were also times where I think they looked a little better, and I noticed it
Mm-hmm.
in time. They had actually swapped. Obviously, Dylan Barrett was back, so that was great
Yeah.
to see on the left side of the line. But I also noticed on the right side they swapped the Brendan Black for Trevor Burr, and I think Trevor Burr opened up some more things. Like he gave some like fresh legs, some fresh strength to that offensive line, and they were able to minimize any like the pass rush from Cincy. Like whenever it's not like Cincinnati's defense was looking solid. Like they looked solid, but I think the offensive line they took a step up. It's still not where it needs to be, but I
Right.
think with getting Dylan Barrett back and you put Trevor Burr at that was it right guard or right tackle
Mm-hmm.
spot, put him there. I think this offensive line has something to grow from, and it's going to be needed and just gets a push
And,
coming down these last
yeah.
couple of games.
No, definitely, man. And as much as I like talk about the defense, defensively, I mean, they were able to get some stops. So it was promising to see the defense get off the field a lot of those drives in the second half. In fact, giving up 7 points that showed that defensively and what we were talking about in the preview show was it came to fruition about getting off the field in certain situations, making plays. They forced a turnover. Getting crucial stops, getting pressure on Sorsby in crucial situations. So I think that's a step up from the defense, and and it goes into us talking about being disciplined and knowing where you need to be. And we got some reinforcements back yesterday. We saw Will McLaughlin sighting. We saw Jack Sadowski. So we're getting some guys back, and apparently there's a rumor that Ben Bramer could be back next week by Utah. So
Yeah, and that's great. I mean, you got Jack Sadowski and Will McLaughlin back. When I saw those two, like they were suited up and they were warming up, I felt much more confident about this defense
hmm
because you now had like some linebackers that knew what they were doing, that had been under uh, the John Haycock defense for a period of time, and they knew exactly what to do, and they were able to supplement the secondary,
right,
and then that D line. Unfortunately, we did see I think J.R. Singleton went out of the game at some point. It was like
yeah,
in the second or third quarter, so we'll have to see what how that affects the defensive line. But the fact that you get like that those linebackers back where you've been depleted basically the entire year, it's a great sighting to see for this defense. And I think this is something that I had heard about for a while, I think, or a few days. I think the reason why our defense looks so like bad, like the last couple of weeks, is because you had guys trying to compensate for others,
hmm
and like this is kind of like where like say like cornerbacks are compensating for the linebackers.
Right,
The quarterbacks can't do their jobs because they're trying to cover up what the linebackers can't do and things like
right.
that. But now you get people that trust each other, that know what they're doing. It's going to be much easier to just focus on your assignment and focus on your job on the defense.
Right, and let's talk about Big Sisters. Big Sisters came back yesterday, and you can tell that he made his presence known. We definitely were able to get a lot more pressure yesterday with Dominic Orange back in the fold.
Yeah, I was just very happy to see Big Citrus being back, and I think just having that big presence right there, and just having a guy who can wreak havoc in the backfield potentially is gonna really put more pressure on the QB and put more pressure on that offensive backfield.
Yeah, man. So that was a great game. We moved to 8-2, and here Cyclones play on the road. And the game has been announced next week as a 6:30 start. I'm just happy. I was afraid that this was going to be like a 9:15 game. I'm like, oh
You were
no. But
afraid of another. You were afraid of another Big 12. Like you were afraid of another Big 12 after dark game.
yeah, hey, but I mean, we got to think about it. The last time we played in Utah with our season on the line, it worked well for us. So I mean, we shall
True.
see. Now let's look at the crazy day that happened in college football, starting with the Big 12. Man, now it's things are getting serious now.
Yeah. I mean, take the big. Let's peel out the band-aid. You had the Kansas Jayhawks go into Lavelle Edwards Stadium at night and knock off the the number six ranked BYU Cougars at the time, handing the Cougars their first loss of the season.
Yeah, man. I mean, KU came in there, had a game plan, and were gutsy. They made like a little pooch punt on that drive, and it hit off of the BYU player's helmet,
Hmm.
bounced right into the KU player's arms, and they got prime field position, went in, and Devin Neal capitalized, scored a touchdown, and defensively they held up. And man, what a win by the Jayhawks. Jayhawks are finally playing up to their potential.
Yeah, I think this is Jalen Daniels finally finding that confidence and finally being acclimated to uh, the Jeff Grimes offensive system. I think he's more
Hmm.
comfortable in the system. He understands what he's doing in this off with the offensive scheme, and obviously leaning on Devin Neal, who has been one of the most consistent running backs in the Big 12. So, just I mean, Kansas for the longest times they hadn't been looking great. Obviously, they had been in so many one-score games, but they were never able to finish. And then for them to be able to finally finish through a one-score game and win out a one-score game, that's going to boost the confidence for this Kansas squad, who now still is fighting to go to a bowl game. And they have coming up next the Colorado Buffaloes is going to be heading to Arrowhead Stadium, and you know the Kansas fans want nothing more than to be able to spoil another team's season. First they did it with BYU, and now they are looking for to possibly spoiling the season for Colorado.
I mean, they beat the top two teams in the league at the time. So now, hey, it would be just like them to maybe pull off another upset, and then really throw this conference into a frenzy. And
Hmm.
like you said, we're gonna talk about the Colorado game. Colorado destroys Utah 49-24. Utah had something going a little bit, and then Colorado just stepped on the gas and just pulled away. I mean, you talk about Travis Hunter and Shadur Sanders. Colorado's offense is explosive.
Yeah, and yeah, you Colorado has clearly shown that they are looking to contend for the Big 12 title and looking to make a push for the college football playoff. And it wouldn't shock me if Colorado was to play in Arlington come December 7th. I mean, you talk about their turnaround from 4-8 last year, and the program was a shambles, to now how the team has gelled well under Coach Prime. the offensive prowess, obviously the dynamic duo of Shador Sanders and Travis Hunter. I think this team is gelled really well, and I mean it's worked out for them. They're sitting tied for first in the Big 12 at 6-1, and they've got a couple, and then they've got a big game. Obviously, we just mentioned it, the Kansas game at Arrowhead Stadium. That's gonna be on 2:30 on Fox. So I'm thinking this could be. I don't know if they've already announced the big noon kickoff, but there is a possibility that if they haven't yet, they might take a consideration to Kansas and Colorado just because of the implications for both teams.
Yeah, yeah. And the only thing is that next week is Indiana, Ohio State, so that's where they're going to be, and
Mm,
in
okay,
Columbus.
okay, that makes
Um,
more sense.
yeah. Um, but yeah, that so that game, Utah moves to 4-6. Now let's talk about the game that we were talking about and how I said how ASU had a chance in this game, and Arizona State goes into Bill Snyder Family Stadium, goes up and beats down K State. They were up 21-0 at half, and they had to hold on to survive in the second half, winning 24-14. Sam Levitt had a great game. Cam Scatterbo ran all over K State, and
Yeah.
K State struggled.
Hmm. Yeah, this was the Jordan Tyson show. He
Hmm.
had 12 receptions for 176 yards and two touchdowns. This was just his show. And I mean, yeah, they were Arizona State just scorching the Kansas State defense. And talk about a little bit of a slump now for the Kansas State Wildcats. They've lost two straight, dropping obviously against Houston and then losing to Arizona State. This puts Kansas State on the outside looking in because now they're tied with Baylor, TCU, Texas Tech, and West Virginia for, I believe that is fifth in the Big 12. They're stuck in that mosh pit with the with all those Big 12 teams, and I don't know how it's gonna fare well for them because their remaining schedule is they got to play Cincinnati, and then they obviously have to play Iowa State at Jack Trice Stadium for Farmageddon. So where do you see this Kansas State team after these two losses?
Man, it's not looking promising for them, man. I mean, what they're like one of the main things that makes Avery Johnson the type of player that he is the fact that he can run the football. But the fact that their offensive coordinator is trying to make him into a pocket passer is totally ruining him. It's making him into something he's not. He's a young player. I feel like when you call plays and you have a dynamic player as a from an ilk like Avery Johnson, you gotta find ways to see how his strengths will complement the team. It just makes no sense to me why you're trying to make him into something that he's not. He'll develop as a passer. He's only a sophomore, so like he'll come in and he'll have a good tight end throw into him like Kincure. So I mean, with them, I'm not sure, man. Like everybody, like we said, like Cincinnati is not gonna be an easy journey, and then they gotta come up to the zoo that is Jack Trice, man. So we'll see. We'll see how they respond next week in Manhattan.
Yep, absolutely. And then to just quickly glance over a couple other Big 12 games, you had Baylor and West Virginia just going in a shootout. Basically, that the first half score ended up being 35-28 in favor of Baylor, and then Baylor was able to hunk like third quarter was a bit of a stall, was a bit of a stalemate, and then Baylor was able to pull away in the second or in the fourth quarter, excuse me, outscoring West Virginia 14-7 to win that crazy shootout. I mean, both teams were just they were throwing everything at each other, and Baylor being able to pull the win out at the end. And now that they're I think they're bowl eligible now. For a wild reason, like they're in that mosh pit, 4-3 teams in the Big 12.
Yeah, and it's crazy because we were talking about that 58.5 point line. The fact that over hit in the first half, I'm like, man, this game is insane. I saw them like 49-35. but we both knew that like it was gonna be a score. Let's. I mean, I got to give credit to Baylor. I mean, 4 game winning streak and just this offense with Sawyer Robertson looks so much better, much better. I'm like, this is sort of what we saw in the first half when they were giving us trouble. I'm like, amazing. What a coaching job by David Aranda to keep his job and
Hmm.
for Baylor to just like we said, we think Baylor's going to win out, and it looks like but they possibly could. I mean, that last game against Kansas is going to be tricky, but that one is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, absolutely. And then for West Virginia, this is a backbreaker of a game for if you're
Hmm.
West Virginia. I mean, you just beat Cincinnati. You thought you could still maybe get a long shot into the Big 12 title game, but now after losing to Baylor, now you have to play against UCF, and then you travel to Lubbock to take on Texas Tech for your final 2 games. I'm a little concerned if West Virginia may go bowling just because of what I've seen out of them. I mean, the last 2 wins prior to that, they only won by 1 possession, and then they lost by 2 possessions here. And I think that kind of looked like a theme outside of the Oklahoma State win. They only beat Kansas by 1 possession, and then lost to Iowa State and to Kansas State by multiple possessions. So you really got to see just how West Virginia can rebound and try to make a bowl game.
I mean, this gut check time right here, you got to win one to get bowl eligible. So we're gonna see both of these fan bases are not UCF and West Virginia. Both don't think that they're gonna win next week. So somebody has to win. So we'll see how that goes next week in Morgantown.
Yeah. And then we forgot Friday actually. Houston absolutely wrecking the Arizona Wildcats.
You mean Arizona? Reckon Houston.
Wait, no, no. I think I had it correct. No, the final score. Oh, Arizona wrecking Houston. My bad. I got those mixed
No,
up.
it's not good. No, the offense for for Houston was a complete no show. I mean, this is probably one of the most shocking results. I thought for sure Houston had this one in the bag with coming out after having emotional win at home against Kansas State.
Hmm.
Now they just come out and flat out lay an egg.
Yeah. It. I mean, it's the turnover margin. Houston
Hmm.
turned the ball over 3 times, and usually when you turn the ball over 3 times, with the team that you have, like in the like late game like this, a late like matchup like this in like November when you're trying to still be bowl eligible, that's not great. That's not a great sign.
Right, and so I mean, with it's a great coaching job um,
Brett
by
Brennan,
Willie Fritz, and um, they'll get it together. It's just
yeah,
been a struggle for them.
yeah, and I think Brett Brennan is trying to salvage whatever's left of this season for Arizona to go bowling as well.
Definitely, man. All right, let's take a look at some of the national scores.
Hmm.
Georgia, uh, Georgia pulls away from Tennessee, and they ended up winning 31-17. That game was 17 all at half.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was in. Yeah, just thinking that in the first half, I was like, okay, this has been a really tight game, and I was still expecting it to be tight. And I thought maybe with it being this close, that Tennessee might have a chance to pull away. But the second half, Georgia just controlled the game, and Carson Beck did not turn the really turn the ball over. They didn't turn the ball over at all this game. Georgia took care of the ball. Carson Beck made plays when he needed to, and he was able to really just he had a really good game to win.
Yeah, man, Carson Beck. When he plays like this, Georgia is hard to beat, and this is like national championship caliber Georgia when he plays like that. So watch out for that. Watch out for Georgia, and LSU drops a tough game. That offense looked putrid against Florida, but man, my Gators, man, they're looking good with DJ Lagway, 5-5 right now, and now they have a chance to compete for a bowl game.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, you mentioned Florida. They do host Ole Miss in the Swamp. That'll be an 11 a.m. kickoff on ABC, so that'll be a great way to start your day. Your day to see if Florida be able to get out of this stretch with bowl eligibility, and then after that, they got to go to Tallahassee and take on Florida State. I honestly think they'll split this. They'll at least split this.
I,
If they do win against Ole Miss, that's even more chaos for the SEC.
yeah, man. If they beat or not beat if they beat Ole Miss next week, that would be icing on the cake. Like, and then you come in extremely confident with a bad Florida State team in how Tallahassee, man, they will be cooking, especially going into the off season, especially with Florida's just impossible schedule and the fact that you could possibly go 6-6 or 7-5 with the schedule. What many people thought, myself included, thought they were going to go like 4-8. Like,
Hmm.
it's an amazing coaching job by Billy Napier and just credit to this team for being able to hold everything together.
Yeah. Let's see here. Then Tulane absolutely shelling Navy, shutting them out, and they've locked their spot into the American Athletic Championship game to take on Army.
We knew Tulane was going to be a good team coming in, and they proved it yesterday in Annapolis, and they just destroyed the will of Navy. And I mean, that AAC championship game is going to be interesting, man. Switch of styles, spread versus triple option. Army, that. I mean, that Army Tulane matchup. I'm excited for that, man.
For sure, yeah, I'm very excited to see that matchup. And I mean, obviously, that's going to have like playoff implications because they're going to try
Hmm.
to keep pace with, say, Boise State. And I'm thinking now, I'm looking more into this. I think a lot of people are like, just make it clear about the the champions getting an auto bid.
Hmm.
I think it's no longer just the Power Four and the best G5. It's the top five highest ranked uh, champions, conference champions. So, I mean, people were talking about a world where you could possibly have Boise State and whoever wins the like I guess you could have Army potentially if they win the American. You could have those two get the auto bids, and then you would have the Big 12 champion possibly as an at large.
Yeah, this whole thing is crazy, and now basically it sort of sounds sickening. It sounds sickening. It sounds sickening to say this, Cody, but we may actually have to cheer for Notre Dame to beat Army. Like,
Mm,
and I'm like, yeah, go Army. And I'm like, dag on it. Now we have to cheer for Notre Dame to beat Army, which they probably will.
right.
The game was at Yankee Stadium, and Notre Dame is locked in right now. But yeah, um, but what I wanted to do, because I mean, really, there were really other games of consequence that were really good. Unless you have anything else, I did want to talk about this to end the show and talk about the tiebreakers, man, because these tiebreakers are absolutely insane, and I want to have give each other our thoughts on what we think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, briefly, just to go over some more like top five results. You had Oregon avoiding the upset alert at Camp Randall, winning 16 to
Man,
13. And then you had Ohio State take care of business against Northwestern. Texas, in a bit of a struggle against Arkansas, but was able to pull away. Penn State, hammering Purdue.
hmm
Notre Dame taking care of business against Virginia. Alabama beating up on Mercer. All right, whatever. SMU staying undefeated in the ACC and looking like they're in the driver's seat to maybe win the conference. We'll have to see about that. And then Texas A&M blowing the doors off of New Mexico State. Washington State actually going down to New Mexico. So there was a shakeup in the AP poll. We might do that after we talk about the tiebreakers. Stanford beating Louisville, so that's more shakeups. And then
yeah, they were up 35-21 in that game.
yep. And then finally, South Carolina taking down Missouri to knock Missouri out of the AP poll.
Yeah, man. What crazy time? South Carolina is searching at the right time,
Yep.
and who knows? I mean, maybe if they finish 9-3, they'll be considered a playoff team,
Yeah.
especially
Who
if
knows?
they have a win over Clemson. But we'll
Hmm.
see.
Yep. All right. You wanted to get to the tiebreakers just because they're the
Yeah, so I don't know. I've seen different things on Twitter. I'm gonna share my screen. I'm gonna look for that Chris Hassel tweet. 1 second.
Yep. Yeah, and then I'm looking up the so I'm going to the Big 12 official website and I'm gonna try to read up on the tiebreakers and whatnot. So let's see. So while you're looking that up, I have the official Big 12 statement or
Sure.
the like tiebreaker. So what they say for this is for a two-team tie specific. This first one's gonna be for two teams. So the tiebreaker will be head-to-head among the two teams in question. Next will be win percentage against common opponents in the conference. After that will be win percentage against the next highest placed common opponent. So say it would be like what Colorado, Iowa State, for example. I would assume it would be K State would be the highest placed common opponent for both teams.
Right.
Combined win percentage in conference games. So and then total number of wins. So, and then you'll go to total wins in the year. So like your total record,
Yeah.
and then we'll do a rating score metric and then a coin toss. So that's for two teams. But now you get to multiple teams. It'll say like the records of three or more tied teams will be compared based on if the teams did not, if all of them did not play each other, but one defeated the other team and whatnot and so forth. You can find this on the Big 12 website, but there's a lot of words. But it's basically like to basically break it down. What you're mainly looking for is head to head, then
Mm-hmm.
record versus common opponents, win percentage versus the highest placed common opponent for the two teams, combined win percentage in conference games, total wins, and then you
Yep.
do like some computer metrics, and then yeah,
Gonna be interesting. I just wanted to read this tweet, and just for all our listeners, and I'm pretty sure that you've seen these too. But Chris Hassel, this is what he said: Following Iowa State win versus Cincy, they have a couple of different paths to the Big 12 title game, but it's complicated. The key is Colorado and Arizona State have to lose a game, or BYU loses out. But like I've also heard like so many other different things, like, and I have no idea, which one of these are true. So like I just, for me, I'm like, we just gotta went out and let things fall the way they do. Um so like we're really really gonna see how this turns out. But it's gonna be. All I will say is that it's an exciting finish. The hope is finally back in this fan base. Everybody is on fire and everybody is pumped up right now. So keep the hope, guys, and let's go out and get a win next Saturday in Salt Lake City and move to 9-2.
for sure.
Uh, do you have any other thoughts you want to share before we head out?
Oh no, I think you hit it on the nail there. Yeah, the biggest thing for this Iowa State team now is just take care of your business and see where everything else falls. And I know for sure now that I think the team's rejuvenated. You've got back some key players. It's gonna be a much more fluid home stretch
Definitely, we're getting reinforcements back at the right time. So I'm excited about this. Thank you guys for joining the Believe in Iowa State podcast. Uh, this You can find both of us on Twitter. He is at Matt Campbell Impersonator. I am at Side Tie Guy. Also, you can find us on your favorite podcast um, contributor. Also, follow our 5 pages on social media: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X. So, for Tyler Carter,
and for Cody Vanciolillo.
this is the Believe in Iowa State podcast. Roll clones, baby.
Let's go state.